We interrupt our regular episodes to provide a special Joy of Cooking holiday episode. If you are tuning in to hear the salmon hotline question, it will be answered in next week's episode. Happy holidays.
Hello, and welcome to the Joy of Cooking podcast. Each week we set the table for a discussion about recipes and stories from the authors of The Joy of Cooking, kitchen victories and misadventures, and most importantly, what we are cooking and eating right now. We're glad you joined us at the table today. I'm Shannon Larson, home cook, ardent Joy of Cooking user and fan, and cranberry sauce enthusiast.
I'm Megan Scott, co-author of the 2019 edition of The Joy of Cooking. I'm a food editor by day and avoider of dish duty by night, and I set the oven on fire when I was 13.
I'm John Becker, fourth-generation co-author and steward of The Joy of Cooking, America's ancient family-run cookbook. Around Christmas time, I like to light things on fire before serving them, and I tend to make a lot of sauce, maybe a little too much sauce.
I did benefit from that too much sauce, though.
True. Did you actually try some?
No, we're going to cook it. We're going to use it tonight. We're excited.
Nice. What are you doing with it?
We're going to just try chicken and rice. So
nice.
I guess I should say, he made... What do you describe it?
Nong's cow mangai sauce. There are a few recipes floating out there for that sauce, and so I just decided to see if I could, arrive at a nice version of it.
And then made it like a quart
of
sauce,
which is
a little it's delicious.
It's a little over a quart. I thought the recipe that Nong has on her website is might have been scaled down insufficiently from a restaurant recipe.
Yeah, that happens.
But yeah, still delicious.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Nong's Khao Man Gai is a very well-known Portland restaurant that makes khao man gai, which is chicken and rice. It's very simply cooked, but perfectly cooked chicken. And you get this delicious rice that I believe is made with the chicken broth that the chicken is poached in. And then you get a little bowl of the broth that has some cooked, it's like a squash or a melon.
Oppo
squash. Yeah, it's just very, and it comes with this super gingery sauce for the chicken. It's so good.
Yeah, so I made the whole spread. I think I went through almost a pound of ginger between the sauce and everything and the broth. And I also made another a scallion ginger sauce. We had just gotten back from out of town, and I think we caught I had some sniffles from the plane ride for some reason, and yeah, it seemed to help.
It's the best thing to have if you're feeling a little
not quite right.
Yeah.
I noticed that both of our intros this morning involved setting things on fire. So,
do we have to do that over again?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
What are you thinking about setting on fire right now?
Well, I'm kind of looking forward to our holiday trip to Huber's. Huber's is this Portland institution. It's a very, very literally old Portland establishment that serves Spanish coffee, which involves, lighting some rum on fire, and then while it's still on fire, pouring some coffee over it, and then finally extinguishing the fire with some, really, barely whipped cream. Delicious. We occasionally do that Christmas Day morning.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll try to reproduce that.
It's just very festive to light things on fire, I feel.
Except for maybe your oven.
Yeah, the oven thing, that was also a Christmas time event. When I was 13, I decided to make croissants from scratch. I had never done it before, but I was very ambitious. So I followed a Martha Stewart recipe. But because I had never made croissants before, I didn't think about how, if you're a professional, you shouldn't have this problem, but I was not. So sometimes the butter leaks out a little bit. And then I baked them on basically a cookie sheet. So it didn't have sides. It didn't have a rim around the edge. And so butter started pooling in the bottom of the oven and then caught on fire.
Oh my gosh.
And I think it's so funny because at the time my dad was, he was a volunteer EMT with the local fire department, but he has training basically. And he's standing there looking at the fire in the oven, just kind of frozen, not knowing what to do. And my mom is the one who jumped into action. We pulled the croissants out. They were actually fine and we ended up eating them, but the day was saved. Everything was fine. But my dad was the one who just completely froze.
Your mom was the hero.
Yeah, my mom was the hero of the story.
I mean, there's something very nice about just staring at fire.
Yes, mesmerizing.
Huh. It's beautiful in a sense.
But yeah, we just got back from visiting my family in North Carolina. And so I got to eat some of my favorite like nostalgic foods. So like greens, beans, cornbread, chicken and dumplings. And we got to go to Waffle House, which is like I have to go to Waffle House at least once while we're there.
Just as I remembered it.
Yeah, pretty much. Except the bacon was really expensive.
Yeah.
The bacon was so much more expensive than I remember. Like John got a side of bacon. It was $4 for 3 really thin pieces of bacon.
It's too much.
Like what?
We're sounding like old.
I sound old.
Back in my day.
Baconflation, I guess. I don't know. So this week, since this is our special holiday episode, we're talking about all things holiday food, all of the things we like to make and eat at the holidays, and we're going to be answering some special holiday-related cooking questions. But before we get into all that, I wanted to welcome our guest today. Our guest is Liz Crain. Liz, I did not print off your bio. Could you please tell us who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, I love food and I am a cookbook author. I've written, co-authored different cookbooks such as Toro Bravo, The Tasty Cookbook, Fermenter Cookbook, Dumplings Equal Love. I don't think I left any out. Food Lover's Guide to Portland. And I also do recipe developing and testing and copywriting. And I'm co-founder and organizer of the Portland Fermentation Festival. I'm very proud of that last
Stinkfest.
Yeah, it's so fun. Yeah.
How was the one this past year? We didn't get to go.
It was wonderful. We did a sort of back to basics one. So we didn't have any special guest speaker like in the past where we've had David Zilber or Sandor Katz or Kirsten Shockey. It was just all of the exhibitors and their fermented foods and the different stations that we have that are popular with everyone, but especially with kids. The Bacterial Petting Zoo. You had Heather Arndt Anderson on a few episodes ago, and she helms that station. But it was great. It was hundreds of people and lots of stinky fun. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about the Bacterial Petting Zoo. That sounds really fun.
Yeah, that's one that Claudia Lucero added a couple years ago. So we have jars of all different cultures. So we have water kefir crystals that I brought, kombucha scobies, natto, all these different cultures that you can sort of sniff and stir and look at with a microscope and learn about. I think it can be daunting to people when you have to, I mean, like there are a lot of very simple ferments like krauts and just add salt, but when it's like acquiring a specific cheese culture or working with these organisms, it's kind of nice to check them out, pet them.
Yeah.
That sounds so fun.
Yeah, I feel like that's part of why I love fermentation projects so much is because it's very different from any other kind of cooking. You're not really, I feel like with a lot of cooking, it's very step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and you have time estimates that are pretty reliable. But with fermentation, it's kind of wild. Like you never quite know how it's going to go, and it can take longer or less time depending on the environment. So and I think that is fun, but for someone who's just starting to do it, it's a little intimidating.
I agree. Yeah, and I think it's just so sensorial. So it's just learning, not to be such a rule follower and follow the steps, but trust your sense of smell, your sight, the sound sometimes with ferments. And I agree. But then that's exactly why I love it, because it's always a surprise. And to bring it around to the holidays, it kind of has that holiday feeling of like, ooh, in the morning, like what's going to be under the tree? Like, is my, kombucha going to be bubbling? Is it going to be getting more sour? Like every day they're changing. So yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you tackle some fermentation projects that are just like, you're my hero, because I would never, like the time frame involved for some of the things that you do is just so long. And I'm just wondering, like, first of all, where do you store all of them? And also, do you have like a favorite or one that you would never do again?
So I store them. I don't have a large home, but I have a utility room in the basement. And those two spots is where most of them, but a lot are on my counter too. I don't do huge batches other than the plum wine that I make every year, which I brought you the plum wine vinegar from that. That will be like 30 gallons this year is what I made. But typically, like with a longer ferment like shoyu or doubanjiang, more like in the realm of 1 to 3 year ferment, that'll be like a gallon or at most 5 gallons. But yeah, I like those really slow, long ferments too. Like with the misos, you're salting and scraping every so often, but it's really simple. You're just making like a bean mash and then letting it ferment super slowly. I get that it could be intimidating to people, but I think once you like go down that path, it's just sort of that accrual of knowledge, like hands-on, tactile, like gardening. It just builds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure that, it also, like, once you get a routine going down of where you're tending to the ferments, do you have like a calendar going?
I have a fermentation notebook, and that's really helpful. Yeah, I did when we were working on the fermenter cookbook, which came out this time last year. I had on my fridge a sort of day-to-day, week-to-week calendar because there were so many. Like I had dozens of ferments that I was testing. I'm not usually testing things. I am taking notes, and it's for future me mostly. But yeah, mostly just that notebook. And I have a garden journal too. Do you all keep kitchen notebooks for like different types of? No.
Well, I have really good intentions, and I've started a number of notebooks that then become scattered around. And I also have I use the Notes app on my phone sometimes, and I also use Evernote. So there's like a million. I have too many places where I put things. I need to be a little more organized about that.
I try to keep everything in Evernote, but Evernote, I don't know. There have been some changes in ownership of Evernote, so
We also
I'm kind of
did
looking for another.
We organized the entire last edition on Evernote, like in different, I don't know, we had a whole system, and it worked really well for that. But now what that means is we have like 20,000 notes in Evernote. And so it just gets really cumbersome, and you're like, I just want to make a quick note. So then I end up using just the Notes app, and it gets lost. But yeah.
I feel like we might actually need to like
Start over.
Start a new system.
Yeah,
something.
I think so.
I brought my copy of Joy, and I want to show you my note taking. So I put in my end papers. I have my own little index for all my cookbooks. And so whenever we get to the point where we're talking specifically about recipes from Joy, I have a lot of material that I can. That's awesome. That's one of my main. I do cook from cookbooks a lot. And so any of the ones that are beloved, you can just open up the back and look at the end paper and see my little handwritten index.
I love that so much. It's so good.
I don't usually like to write in books, but
yeah,
I make an exception for end paper indexes. Yeah,
need to be written in.
I agree. In some fashion, whether you're using sticky notes or pencil or however you want to.
And just for the benefit of listeners, the end papers is completely covered in text.
Yeah. So I write the recipe, and then after that, in parentheses, I have the page number, and then I have notes on, perfect or so tasty, or I added this and liked it, or little variations that,
nice,
very helpful.
All right, so this week for our tasting segment, since we're talking about holiday food, I brought in 3 different kinds of Icebox cookies to try. So there is a cranberry ginger with orange glaze. There is a lime cardamom and a chocolate. What else did I put in that one? Is it just chocolate? Yeah, I think it's just chocolate. I did these yesterday, and I can't remember what I did. But basically, so this recipe has been in Joy since 1931. So it's a very old recipe, and for a while, I think in like the 60s or 70s, the name changed to refrigerator cookies because we don't call them ice boxes anymore, but it just doesn't have the same ring to it, so it was changed back to Icebox cookies. But I love them so much because you can just use the same dough and make a million different variations, whatever flavor you want. It's really forgiving. And then you have this roll of cookie dough in your fridge that you can just slice and bake whenever you want cookies, or you can put it in your freezer and then have it for whenever. So it's just super fun. You can use them as like sandwich cookies or roll them in nuts or whatever. They're just really fun because you get to play around a lot. And I love playing with recipes. So let's let's try.
And are most of those, they're kind of more like shortbready because they're
Yeah.
Icebox cookies. Yeah, I love that. Ooh,
Yeah,
the
they're
texture is so
crumbly.
good.
Yeah. I'm gonna try one of the ones with the
one of these
orange
too.
glaze.
They're beautiful. I like the way the glaze is striped over.
Those are delicious. Mm-hmm. I'm bummed I finished my coffee already because it'd be
Oh, yeah, it would
perfect
be
with
perfect.
coffee.
Yes. Do you usually bake a lot of cookies around the holiday time?
I really like to. I haven't. This year has been so busy that I just haven't been able to do it, which is kind of a bummer. But yes, I love baking cookies. They're so fun.
Pfeffernussen, I think I'm saying that right. Those are some of our favorites to bake.
What are those?
Pepper nuts, just tons of spices in there. Black pepper, nutmeg. I got
All the. I think it's like all those spices.
like all the spices that you have practically.
But like
They're
the
kind
dough
of a
is.
chewy cookie, right? Yeah.
And they're better when you make them ahead of time and then age them. So like you make them and you roll them in powdered sugar and then like put them in a tin for a month. And I mean, you can eat them before that.
Right.
But they're really, really good as they sit and just, it's like the spices kind of mellow and get more like integrated with each other. Like, yeah, they're just delicious.
I don't know, especially after we, for the 2019 edition, we kind of redeveloped our Lebkuchen recipe. And since then, it has become kind of a go-to as well.
What's Lebkuchen?
German honey bars. Again, like heavy on the spice. Again, really good if you age them for a while. Traditionally, they use a kind of leavener that we don't expect people to find. But
Hartshorn.
yes,
A lot of German cookie recipes or baking recipes, old ones, will use like hartshorn, I think is what it's called, which is, it's a very, I think it is a more volatile leavening agent. Like you put it in the dough and it will like cause it to really bubble up and I think it gives things a particular texture that you don't get quite the same from like baking soda or baking powder.
Can
but
you still get that
you
product?
can.
at like German specialty stores, yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't,
You know what it is exactly? No, it doesn't.
can't remember.
Yeah,
I feel like it's ammonia. Like, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't remember, but and it's more because it's more volatile. It also has a much shorter shelf life, so you really you buy it and then you use it right away, and you can't really store it for that long. So it's just kind of finicky. So we don't call for that in the recipe, but we just make them with normal ingredients.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of a fun. If you're really into German baking, it'd probably be a good idea to like find some and just see what that is like.
Yeah.
Named.
I know. I love it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
ammonia.
We just made gingerbread people the other night.
Awesome.
We like them crispy. I like them crispy. I really do because I like to dip them in like Earl Grey tea or coffee, and they're just cute. And each one has like a different personality. It was really ridiculous. I was probably really annoying to my husband in the kitchen. I was like, "Look at this one. It's kicking its leg up." He's like, "Shut up. I'm trying to watch Northern Exposure, Shannon."
That's such a good show. I love Northern Exposure. I'm obsessed with that show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not as much of a baker, but I did see a new recipe on the New York Times for a matcha black sesame cookie that I really want to try.
I got an ad for those.
Oh, did
that
you?
cookie? Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that sounds delicious. Really, really good. So I do think I'm going to bake a little bit when I'm not working, when I have some time off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they always have. I feel like they always do a bunch of cookies around this time of year that looks so good. And Washington Post does too. They always have a really good like selection of new cookies. They had one this year that was they look like quilt squares.
Oh,
Like they're really I didn't look at how it's made. It's probably a little it looks like a lot of work.
Yeah.
But they're really pretty.
yeah. I remember, was it last year when Eric Kim had his gochujang cookies like
Yeah.
blow up? Those are delicious. Those
Yeah,
are
I
really,
want to
really
try
good.
those still.
They're great. And they're actually really easy. Good for people like me,
Non-bakers.
a non-baker.
I was listening to a podcast as I was baking, and I need to like listen to things. I can't just do two things at once sometimes. And so I forgot to put the egg in until I'd already put the flour in. So then I had to crack the egg into the bowl as it's mixing. Like, I hope that's fine. How do they taste?
They're really good.
Good.
I find when I'm cooking and listening to podcasts, I'm constantly doing the rewind, rewind. And if someone were in the room with me and they heard this situation, they'd think I was absolutely senile. They'd be like, really, the 15th time? Again? No, just press pause. Just stop. Yeah. All the time.
All right, Liz. So to get started, what is your relationship to the Joy of Cooking cookbook? Like, did you grow up with it, or was it something you were introduced to as an adult?
So grew up with it on the shelf, did not cook from it really honestly until I met you two. But my mother gave all of my college, I went to Vassar College, and when I graduated, she gave all of my apartment mates a copy, and I wish I knew which edition of Joy it was. Yeah, I'm sure that at the table we had lots of Joy of Cooking recipes, but it really was like after meeting you two that I just dove in, and I've cooked so many things from it since then. And
What are some of your favorites?
my seasonal favorite, so I always make your green tomato chow, and that's like the only true good green tomato recipe that I love. I do ferment green tomatoes, and I occasionally will do fried green tomatoes, but a lot of the chutneys and other dishes that I've made just are, I don't know. I've been waiting for this recipe for all my life. And it's so good. So now I use it always in place of pimentos for pimento cheese.
Oh, awesome. That sounds
I
so
use
good.
it. It's so good. Yeah. And adds that little like sweet kick and the spice from it. And I go more red pepper heavy on it than the green bell peppers. And I use it in like cold salads. So like tuna salads, chicken salads. I love your buttermilk cheddar scallion biscuits with the like lacy cheddar on the bottom. Those are probably my boyfriend Jimbo's favorite. And we'll make egg sandwiches out of those.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, but just having the like little, I forget how you worded it. It's so sweet. Like the little feet.
Oh, yeah,
of
crispy
cheddar.
cheese feet.
Yeah. I love the crispy cheddar cheese feet. They're so good. Probably the most ambitious thing that I made was the Québécois Tourtière. Is that how you say it? And it turned out so well. And I am not much of a baker, but it's such a beautiful, savory holiday time.
Yeah. It's really rich and
yeah.
good for cold weather.
Would you describe it? It's a meat pie. It's a meat pie. Yeah, ground beef.
Like
yeah,
spiced.
lots of spices.
Yeah.
We need to revisit that. It's been, I feel like after we developed it, that was like the last time we had it.
Yeah, probably. There's so many
So
recipes to love.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And you added hundreds to the 2019
About
edition.
600.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's just astounding.
It's wild.
Yeah.
When I think about it, I'm still like, wait, what were we thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think after, I want to say that it's not like unusual for that many to be added to a
for
new
a Joy.
edition. I mean, I feel like there are some exceptions. Irma's editions, like she was adding a ton, but maybe between like the 40s edition and the 50s edition, there might not have been too many new ones. But yeah, there's always a lot of shuffling going on.
It's almost 100 years.
Yeah,
We're
we're
getting
getting there.
Yeah, we're
100 years.
kind of nibbling at the edges of the Centennial edition. So,
Nibbling at the edges.
well, you know,
Cheddar
John,
feet.
I like
of the cheddar feet.
I think it's because of our beloved cat. Lola was nibbling at these cookies last night. So I think that's,
She did. Oh my gosh. Are any of your cats bread cats, Shannon?
My cat Morris is a anything
Okay.
cat. He's
A
eaten rubber
garbage
bands
cat.
before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, he would eat.
Yeah, Lola likes cookies apparently. So now we
She's
have
so
another
sweet.
thing to hide from her when we make them. Liz, we already talked a little bit about fermentation, but I guess I was just wondering, since like you help lead the fermentation festival, you've worked on like the fermenter cookbook, and I know you just love to ferment things in your normal life, but like how did you first get into doing that?
It was a pretty common way. So I moved to Portland in 2002, and I had my first backyard home garden, and it was so fruitful. And so I just had a lot of produce all at once that I needed to make use of. And I got Sandor Katz's wild fermentation, and that just opened up opened up the doors to all sorts of. I loved it from the like I made sauerkraut, sour pickles, and then it was just that whole world was opened up to me. And yeah, and then several years later, I went out for the Sun magazine. They asked me to go out and interview him in Tennessee, and so I went to
That's awesome.
the commune where he was then living, and he still lives close to now. And interviewed him, and then he came out, and we started the festival with him.
I love that so much.
It's
So special.
one of my favorite things in life is food and drink fermentation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, consuming food and drink ferments, making them, teaching them, especially with kids. I love projects.
I bet that's
with
because
kids.
they're a little bit magical. Like you,
Very much so. Yeah.
I also got started with fermentation from Wild Fermentation. I bought that book and then had never
A
done.
lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of people have. But I remember I started with sauerkraut because I think I had seen Sandor Katz demo a sauerkraut thing at the like farmer's market or something.
Yeah.
And my first batch, I did like a 5-gallon crock.
That's a
full.
lot.
I had no sense of, like I just had no sense of what was normal to ferment. And I thought, oh, well, like this is a crock. Bought the crock. I think at like a hardware store or something. And it was so cool because like the day after I had mixed the cabbage with the salt, it was super bubbly. And I was like, it's working. It's something that's happening. It was just so exciting. And then I think I caught the bug. I was like, oh, I can do kimchi. I could do kombucha. I could do all of these cool things. Yeah, it's very exciting.
That's what, and at the festival, we always are all about the Portland Fermentation Festival, getting kids to come. So kids 12 and younger come for free. And we have that bacterial petting zoo that we talked about, but also like do-it-yourself ferment station. So like make something as simple as like fermented dilly beans or kraut and take home a jar. And because I think once you make something like that, if you do indeed like those flavors, like you said, you catch that bug and what next?
So what's your approach to just day-to-day cooking? Are you a person who likes to follow recipes, or do you kind of go off the cuff more?
I'd say I'm in the middle. I love cookbooks. How many cookbooks do you all have, do you think, at home?
Oh my gosh, your library.
I was thinking about, because I was counting mine again.
A few hundred?
Yeah,
maybe?
I feel like more than that.
I think I'm just under 300. So I have a huge shelf in my kitchen, and then it overflows into my writing studio and into the living room. And so a lot of cookbook cooking. Also just a lot of, I've sort of, as a recipe developer and food lover, just have developing my own recipes. And I get inspiration from like dining out in Portland. We have such a great, culinary culture here. So get loads of ideas from meals out that then I sort of maybe try to recreate or just get inspired to do something similar. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really fun source of inspiration, just trying a new thing. Like we went out to Shaoye this week and had like this cabbage. It was like a wedge of cabbage
so good.
that had been charred, and then it was like really soft, like braised or something.
I think it was braised.
Yeah, but it was in this puddle of. There were all these seeds and nuts
fish,
and
a ton of fish
sauce.
Ooh,
It was so
delicious.
good, and now I'm like, I have to figure it out.
I know. It was amazing.
There's some pineapple juice was in there as well.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, very good.
I love them. That couple was at Portland Book Festival this year.
Oh, cool.
They did a great talk with Rachel Kong, who was my editor of the Toro book, and then now as a novelist, but also was Lucky Peach editor.
Oh.
Her, and then Christina Cho, who has that Chinese Enough cookbook. That was great. But I haven't been there since late summer, so I want to get that cabbage dish. That sounds really good.
Yeah, it's great.
I've been thinking about it all weekend.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the cookbooks that you're cooking most out of right now?
Well, Jimbo's out of town at the moment, and he does not eat meat. And one of my favorite comfort dishes is the Vig. Do you know Vig in Vancouver? Their Indian cookbooks are every recipe is so good, so well tested. And my ultimate comfort food is their family chicken curry. So I made that yesterday, and I'm always cooking. That the end papers of that, the Veg cookbook, are similar to the Joy cookbook, where it's just pretty much top to bottom filled with tiny scribbles of all the dozens of recipes that I've made.
Do you have both of the Veg's cookbooks?
I do, and I cook more from the first one, the Elegant and Inspired.
Sure.
I favor it for numerous reasons, but I do also really like the second one too. And I don't know if they have a third. I have those two.
Yeah, I just know about the two.
Yeah,
it wouldn't
me
surprise
too.
me if they seem to produce a good cookbook. So I can see why they wouldn't stop.
Their restaurants, for my 2 birthdays ago, I think, so I'm 48, so I think it was my 46th, we went to Vancouver and we ate at so it's the original, but it's a new original. It's the Veg restaurant, but it's at a new location. And Miru was eating there. Oh. And it was so hard not to interrupt her eating so I did. But it was like they were having dessert and we were leaving, and I just poked in. I didn't even say who I was. I just said, I love you. Thank you for all the delicious food and have a great meal. And that's it. Nice. But it just felt good to see her face to face. And love their food. That would be one. There's so many cookbooks that I cook from a lot. Do you cook from cookbooks a lot?
Oh, yeah.
We are always flipping through like new cookbooks. And I would say we do follow recipes in them sometimes as is, but we like to fuss with recipes.
It's the collaboration.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I love that. Yeah.
But the authors have done the testing, so you know it's good.
Right.
And then you can kind of like add a little bit of more garlic, which I do in every recipe.
Yeah, I
Me
feel
too.
like
that's one thing that almost always often also add more salt.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm a salty
We like
salt lover. Yeah. Spice.
I feel like the relationship between reader and text and author is very specific. Unique is not quite the right word, but it's just there's such a visceral interplay going on with cookbooks, and what ends up on the table, and how people end up improvising or just doing things according to taste. I don't know. It's fascinating. I still have no idea of exactly how to talk about it in a coherent way, so I guess I'll stop.
I think that's quite coherent.
Yeah.
I think your tangy bean dip and Joy, that's a perfect example of the collaboration between you all and then previous editions and myself. So now when I make it, I use my Lizzie Lils, my oil cured peppers that I make, my plum wine vinegar. I pressure cook it and I make a 4 quadruple batch. I have all these notes. That's one recipe where I wrote them in the recipe. Normally I try to keep it to the end paper, but you created this amazing recipe that I now use in a way that's very much batch cooking, and I freeze them in little portions, and because we love beans, and it's great for quesadillas and burritos and just as a dip as you intended it. But
Awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like I probably shouldn't admit this, but I was trying to recreate a Trader Joe's thing.
Yeah, we were trying to
I think that's
recreate
great.
Trader Joe's bean dip.
Yeah.
We really liked it.
yeah,
And but yeah, every recipe is kind of a springboard.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you can follow it as is, and that probably learn something. But then, how do you work it into your life and make it work with your time constraints or your pantry or whatever? I think that's so fun.
Yeah.
Liz, where can listeners follow you and see what you're up to?
I have a website. It's just my name, LizCrain.com. And then I think that the social media that I'm on the most is Instagram, and that's Liz Crain PDX. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.
So since this week's topic is holiday recipes, I just wanted to talk for a few minutes about what all of us like to make every year at the holidays. What is the thing that you have to make? Otherwise, it's not the same.
Oh, man. I mean, I feel like I grew up in the Midwest, and I feel like a lot of holiday cooking was very heavy. And so as I got older, I still like the heavy stuff. I have to have mashed potatoes. I love mashed potatoes so much. They're amazing. I put a little horseradish in it to make it a tiny bit spicy. But I also like to balance the table a lot with a nice radicchio salad. And I love cranberry sauce. I know I mentioned it at the beginning of this episode, but I think cranberry sauce is just like the unsung hero of the holiday table. It brings everything together. It's good on every little dish. Like having just a bite of that cranberry sauce with anything, I think it just makes it better. I don't know.
I agree because like the flavors of the holiday table are usually like they're really rich and
Rich,
really
yeah.
good,
Yeah.
but you need something super tangy to
Yeah.
kind of set it off.
Just need something bright.
Yeah.
And it's also beautiful.
It's so pretty.
It's like a jewel on the table.
Do
So
you
it's my
make
favorite.
do you do like a whole berry cranberry sauce?
Yeah, I do a whole berry cranberry sauce, and I add a lot of orange in mine too, and I add a lot of ginger. Going back to our ginger conversation, so that's my usual go-to. I like it bright and a little bit spicy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like I started adding a little bit of Dijon
Ooh.
as well.
Oh, that sounds good.
That might be like something I picked up from Cooks Illustrated back in the day.
I love it.
Can't remember exactly where that came from, but yeah, just all of what you just said, plus like just a big dollop of Dijon.
I love that. That's a great idea.
It's good.
What about you, Liz? What do you make every year?
So also, where in the Midwest are you from?
I'm from Indiana.
Okay, yeah, I'm from Cincinnati.
Oh,
so
very
I
nice.
go home, and we have that in common, you and I, John. So I go home for Christmas for 1 week every year, and it's really like the consistently only time that I see my family, which is sad, and we need to work on that. But that's once a year, so we have a lot of food traditions, and they're not common ones. So we have a fermented soda challenge that we do.
Really?
So we ferment our own soda, and then we go to Jungle Gyms and get a bunch of. Jungle Gyms is a whole, you could do a whole show on that place. It's a store in Cincinnati that has 80 different countries represented in the store.
It's ridiculous.
Multiple aisles for each country. So like a Tanzania section, et cetera. But we go there and we get sodas. Dumplings. We always make dumplings. Garlic cheese grits casserole. For Christmas Eve, we do Cincinnati chili. We do it buffet style. So good.
Love
yeah,
it.
you
I
love
it.
that
I love
from being in
Cincinnati
Indiana.
chili
Yeah,
is so good.
it's so good.
I love it.
We do dumplings with the Cincinnati chili.
Ooh.
My grandma's wolf eggs. My other grandma's
what's
Wait, what are
penguins.
wolf eggs?
There's so many weird little wolf eggs are to keep it short, they are late grandma Amy loved Nero Wolf. He's a character in a detective series by Rex Stout. And he had a Swiss chef who made all sorts of delicious dishes. And an egg dish that he made, my grandma made a family recipe
my
for
God.
that we make every year that has unsweetened condensed milk and sausage and eggs. And anyway, I could go on. We have lots of silly and fun and time honored traditions.
I feel like I need a cookbook
those.
with just your
I know.
family's holiday.
Yeah,
recipes.
exactly.
kind of it spans. Yeah,
Yeah, it
we
does.
do. We also do Christmas dinner. We'll have like some sort of roast, and we'll have cranberry sauce and different veggie sides. And how about you all?
I mean, growing up, I feel like if there was like a Christmas dinner that year, it was just like Thanksgiving, the sequel. And ever since I entered into adulthood or whatever, I've just been trying to find like the right Christmas. I'm just kind of experimenting, I guess, with different Christmas things. For several years, we did roast goose, kind of a steam roasted situation. It's a Julia Child technique where you steam it first and then like in a roasting pan covered with aluminum foil in the oven. You uncover it and it's rendered a lot, and then you get it nice and crispy.
Goose is so interesting because it's like steak almost.
Yeah.
Like it has a red meatness to it.
Oh, and we learned a really good trick from Hank Shaw, who contributor to Joy. He helped us sort out the game chapter and also the fish chapter.
Fish, yeah.
But anyways, wonderful resource, very knowledgeable, and encourages you to just carve off the breast when it's done and then put the rest of the bird back in the oven. And
Yeah, because that's like the hard thing about goose or duck too, is like the legs need to be cooked much longer than the breast. You want the breast to be kind of medium rare, and if you do them together, you're going to overcook it. So
That's really smart.
It's really nice. It's good to just cut them off when they're done, and then you don't have to worry about it.
And just being told it's okay to do that
Yeah.
helps.
Yeah.
yeah, and the presentation might not be quite as perfect, but
I think
no
that's
one
overrated.
cares.
Yeah, you just want it to be delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing.
To me, it's not the holidays without a batch of the Becker Deluxe eggnog.
I want to make that.
We just made some yesterday.
Yeah.
I forgot to bring some. It's egg, right? It's, this is morning time.
Breakfast.
My brother loves eggnog, and he always gets, whatever at United Dairy Farmers, their jug of eggnog in Cincinnati. So we have to make yours this time. Yeah.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
It's rather boozy.
Yeah, I've heard it's boozy.
Yeah.
You need small glasses.
Yeah.
That's the key. Small glasses and
And it has to be boozy.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're doing a lightning round of questions this time. We're going to answer a bunch of holiday-related cooking questions. So one of the first ones I got when I asked this was a recommendation for pizzelles that do not taste like anise cardboard. So
No judgment there.
I don't personally have a recommendation for store-bought pizzelles, but I was thinking the ones that I've had that I thought were actually good were homemade. And you can really easily and cheaply buy a little pizzelle iron.
Yeah.
I think even that company, I think it's Dash, they make like mini waffle irons and miniature appliances. They have a pizzelle iron. So like I would recommend making your own.
Yeah.
And probably one other thing that occurred to me is toasting the anise seeds would be good. It kind of just gives them a little bit of a richer flavor that I prefer to just the raw. But yeah, I would just say make them DIY.
Fair.
It seems like a fun thing to do, too. New tradition.
Let's see. Another question we got: how to get the cookies up off the paper after you cut them out? Mine stick.
Okay. So I'm guessing that it sounds like this person is probably rolling out the dough between sheets of parchment paper and then maybe chilling it and then trying to cut it out and peel them off. So after you roll the dough out between your parchment paper, and after you chill it, when you're getting ready to cut them out, you have to peel the parchment paper off both sides. So you peel off the top piece so it's loose, put it back on, flip it over, peel the bottom one off, put it back. Or you don't have to put it back at that point. But you make sure to peel it off both sides, and then you cut them out. And they should come off a lot easier. Another thing you can do that we used to do when I was working at a restaurant was we'd roll the dough out, put it on a sheet pan, and use our cookie cutter, cut them out, but then freeze them, just pop the whole thing into the freezer. And then when you pull it out, you can just break off. They just kind of break apart and into perfect shapes. And then you can throw them right in the oven from frozen, and they're less likely to spread and get, malformed in the oven that way too.
That's smart. What foods do you like to prepare ahead of time to nosh on during those days of long cooking during the holidays? So something that you can kind of think about a couple days in advance, maybe, so that way you're not snacking the whole time on what you're putting together.
I was going to say party mix. I mean, that is
that's a good
snacky. That's a snacky thing. Yeah. But like, you got to have a big tub of party mix around for the whole month of December.
We have Sylvia's cheese breads for that, and so party rye and party pumpernickel. I feel like that's something that's gone out of favor and kind of hard to find. But these are these little cheese breads. It's basically just like take some different cheeses, grate them, add a little mayo, a little minced onion, and then throw that on top of the party breads and broil them. It's a more specific than that. We actually have a family recipe for it. Sylvia's our old dear friend. Yes, I will share it with you. Yeah. Oh yeah. But that recipe, dumplings we do too. Mm-hmm. That's a little more intensive for a lot of people. But if you buy the store-bought wrappers, skins, whatever you call them, and then you have whatever mix you want, then you can just throw those together quickly.
That's a great idea.
Or God forbid.
More complicated than Chex Mix, though. Yeah.
Or God forbid, you just have some store-bought dumplings around.
Exactly. No, those are great. Yeah.
I think we have like 4 different kinds of store-bought dumplings in our freezer right now.
They freeze so well, whether they're homemade or the store-bought frozen ones. They just, it's like you'd be hard-pressed to say that's fresh or that's frozen. It's just sort of.
All right, I have a question about cooking a 25-pound turkey at 6,000 feet. Like, how long to cook a 25-pound turkey at 6,000 feet elevation?
Forever.
Yeah, forever.
Until it's done. I mean, instant read thermometer. That's.
Yeah, you'll want a thermometer because Yeah, you just want a thermometer anyway. We use a Thermopin, but the same company, ThermoWorks, also makes a cheaper one that's called a Thermopop, and they're really good thermometers. But
then
yeah,
there's
you're
also,
going to want to check for doneness.
There is a fancier thermometer that we acquired fairly recently. I think it's just combustion thermometer, precision thermometer or something. It has like 8 sensors in the probe, and it can actually measure how fast the heat is penetrating.
Wow.
So it can kind of tell
highly
you when
calibrated.
it's going to be done.
Yeah, that's the idea. And, I wouldn't super depend on the estimate, but it at least gives you a really good idea of what's going on in there. And, you just want to measure the breast. I think in previous editions, we were always telling people to take the temperature of the leg, like on the inside, not touching the bone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good to make sure that part is cooked through. But the breast is what you're trying to not overcook.
Right.
But yeah, you're probably gonna have to budget some extra time, especially because it's a 25-pound turkey, and also the altitude is gonna make a difference.
Yeah, I was going to say probably a more moderate temperature too. So avoiding the temptation to crank up the oven, I would go with something like 325, maybe 350.
Well, because it's such a big turkey, yeah. And if you really want to speed it up, no, actually you can't spatchcock a 25-pound turkey.
Yeah, that would be
you
would need like a bandsaw or something to do that.
Your oven would have to be like a full-size
huge.
commercial oven in order to, hold a splayed 25-pound turkey.
Yeah, no.
So there's really no way to do that.
But yeah, probably like 325. And when I was looking up estimates for how long that might take, it was in the realm of like 5 to 6 hours. So definitely budget plenty of time for that. That is a large turkey. Godspeed.
That's a big bird.
It's a big bird.
Well, speaking of turkey breast, how do you save dry turkey? Well,
More gravy.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Just make a lot of gravy. You can't make too much gravy.
Yeah, slice the breast thin across the grain and be liberal with the gravy. And if possible, serve more dark meat than you would normally.
Yeah, I would also say, like, if you suspect if you haven't cut it up yet, but you suspect it's overcooked, as soon as it comes out of the oven, just go ahead and carve off the breasts and take the legs apart, because then it won't rise as much more in temperature as it normally would.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Even slicing it, like let's say it's at the breast is like threatening to go over 165, and you're like, oh no. So yeah, carve it off and slice it. And then that way you're just going to stop the carryover cooking altogether.
Also, someone asked about our favorite way to cook ham for the holidays. Does anyone have thoughts? I am not a big ham.
I'm not a ham person either.
I like it. I don't usually cook it. So
Yeah.
Well, this is a long time ago, but we were living in Tennessee, about a 20-minute drive away from Benton's Hams. And people still talk about this holiday ham that we got from them.
Oh, it was so
Absolutely
good.
delicious.
Served it at our wedding.
Yeah.
Holiday ham.
It was a holiday of sorts. But yeah, no, it was smoked and lightly cured. It's not, Benton's is known for their country hams. But yeah, I scored the skin diagonally. I think I used a box cutter, but a sharp knife or a box cutter. That is really the hardest part about cooking a ham. But yeah, just a moderate oven until it's cooked through. Again, like instant rethermometer is key. And then, yeah, I'm kind of partial to a brown sugar rub at the end. Once it's cooked through, or nearing to the point where it's cooked through, like maybe 30 minutes before it's done, you take it out, you crank up the oven to maybe 425, and then rub it all over with, we usually do like a combination of brown sugar and dry mustard, cider vinegar, just to make kind of a paste. And then you just kind of smear that all over. Maybe it's just having a bunch of honey-baked hams as a kid, but I really do enjoy like clove, and I think it's mace. I think they use mace in that mixture. But yeah, some ground cloves and some ground mace would be fantastic put into that rub.
I have my own question for Liz really quickly.
yeah.
As we were saying, I like to lighten up my holiday table a little bit. Do you have any fermented food recommendations that would go with a holiday dinner to just kind of like add a little bit different texture and flavor?
I mean, I just always think a pickle platter.
Yeah.
You can never go wrong with it. A pickle platter. Just is that sort of like a brighten, like your cranberry sauce. It like brightens up your palate and it gives you that nice crunchy texture. So that, and then I kind of briefly mentioned that we do that soda challenge, my nieces and I. But I think just having like fizzy ferments like water kefirs and ginger beers and kombuchas, it's like such a often heavy meal, and it's out usually like drinking and having wine or cocktails if you do partake, but having just like delicious complicated beverages that are fizzy and light and fermented are nice. So we're going to do water kefir. We're going to make some fruited water kefir for that.
Nice.
But yeah, pickle platter and fizzy drinks, I think. Yeah.
If you have a topic, ingredient, or joy story to share, call our hotline at 503-395-8858. Leave us a message or send us a text. We'd love to hear from you. Next week, we'll be back to our regular scheduled programming. I believe we're answering a question about salmon. Yes, salmon. All right, well, what is everyone making in the next week that you're looking forward to? I'll go first. Since we were talking about cabbage earlier, we have a cabbage in our crisper, and I'm thinking about making haluski one night for dinner.
What is haluski?
So good.
It's a Polish dish of basically caramelized onions and cabbage and egg noodles and lots of butter. It's delicious.
sounds amazing.
It's so simple. It's so good. I love like beige and brown food. I think it tastes better than anything. So yeah, cabbage with noodles is what I'm excited about.
So egg noodles.
Yeah,
I need
egg
to
noodles
use
are
egg noodles
delightful.
more often. Love them.
I'm finishing up a cookbook, so I'll be testing the Lizzo salad this
Ooh.
week, which is pretty fun. And I can't say too much about the cookbook, but the salad has massaged kale, hemp seeds, a nice vinaigrette. It's vegan. She's vegan. That, and then I'm going to go to Edelweiss this week to get all my treats for, it's funny because Cincinnati is a Germantown and we have German heritage, but I bring home in my suitcase things from Edelweiss German deli here because their salamis are so good. And their Haribo gummy selection is pretty extensive too. So my nieces love those. So they have really unusual ones there. So I'll be making like some kind of, I get their paprika loaf usually, which is like mortadella or bologna, and make sandwiches out of that. But final deadline, so just not cooking a lot other than
Just
those
surviving.
things. Yeah.
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 How about you?
I'm excited to try your chicken and rice sauce that you made. So I'm looking forward to doing that tonight, just like spending some time in the kitchen and smelling chicken broth and rice cooked together.
So cozy.
Yeah, I'm just ready for a little bit of this is like my last week of work before I have a little time off. So I'm just pushing through. Just going to push through and then I'll be cooking a lot when I'm not working.
I've been intrigued by a recipe. It's a Genovese ragu recipe. But yeah, it's a beef ragu, and the cooking medium is 3 pounds of thinly sliced onion.
So there's no
wow.
liquid.
There's no added liquid. It is just like
I
you
love that.
sweat like some of the onion with like a little bit of carrot and celery, not very much. You just get kind of to get the steamy action going, and then you nestle some chunks of, I think it's chuck roast that's been lots of salt and pepper on that. Then yeah, you cover it with the rest of the onions, and I imagine it's just going to fill up the entire Dutch oven with onion. Should be
That sounds
should be
good. I'm
interesting.
excited for you to make that for me.
Yeah, your house is going to smell amazing.
Yeah.
There's a Nigel Slater recipe that's similar to that. And tender that I make a beef stew that's so just onion heavy. I love onions are such beautiful
MVP.
Oh
So
my
good.
goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
folks that are allergic.
Complicated.
It's
that would be
it's like
hard.
such a tragic food
I
food
know.
allergy. Very sad.
Well, we won't think about that now. Thanks for listening to the Joy of Cooking podcast. Before we go, show some love for your favorite podcast by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts and iTunes. Follow us on Instagram at The Joy of Cooking. Stay tuned for next week, where we will tackle salmon. Call in with questions, hopes, history, or where you find joy in the kitchen. Our number is 503-395-8858. That's 503-395-8858.
And we cannot do this without our fantastic team at the Joy of Creation Production House. Thank you to Kayleen Beach, our production coordinator, Haley Bowers, our audio engineer, and Sarah Marshall, our producer.